Hey everybody, Riot More
Also,
here,
you're not that
joined
special.
by Tim as always in our amazing
You're
pink
you're
hoodies.
you're special just like everybody else.
And it is the patch 16.3 rundown. Now, this is a important patch for us in the sense that, we launched the set 16.1 and then 16.2 we kind of came back and had to rush in a bunch of changes with micro patches and stuff like this.
All right, let's do
This
it.
is our first patch we've been able to like actually take everything that's happened and make a real patch. Is that right, Tim?
This is the first
Yeah, we
real
finally
patch?
had some time. Not a
Okay.
lot of time. We had about a week to get all those things that needed loc, needed bigger implementation changes, bigger testing time, and we put that all into this patch. So this is going to be our quote-unquote systems patch. And ideally, this is our last huge patch of the set because after this,
Volume
we
up.
should have all the champions and systems
Volume
in
is
place we
max.
like, and we'll
Here we
just
go.
tune them,
Max volume, max
fine-tune
volume.
them to where we want them to be long-term.
Yep. Cool. Yeah, so decent amount of changes. I know a couple of reworks, a couple things like that. So a lot to get into. So let's dive right
It's a
in.
1
As
hour
usual,
long
I'll
patch
read the
notes.
slides.
Holy cow.
Tim provides extra commentary, and it'll be a grand
go.
old time. So here we go. All right,
wait,
on the
what's
system
Frodan
side, first thing we're doing here is the XP cost from
Henry,
level
thank you.
8 to level 9 is going up by 8. This is to
Oh.
generally slow down the pace of people hitting 9 and 10. Let level 8 breathe a little longer.
Wow,
this
that's a
won't
really
have,
big deal.
drastic impacts and things like that, but we do expect this to just help a little bit with those games where people are like level 9 on 4.
That's a really big
be a little
deal.
more costly to do that. Slow that down just a little bit. On the encounter side, just some augment things here. Crafting in the Gwen's Gifts encounter led to abuse cases where you could basically get a ton of free rerolls. Made this augment way too good. That's disabled.
It's like 18
And
free
then
rerolls or
Emblem
something
Ensemble,
like that.
which I know still a pretty spicy encounter, but right now the fact that you can get it plus like Curse Crown and then hit 10 Bilge Water on like 3/6 is a little wild. So we're gonna disable Coronation, Curse Crown, Flexible, Legion of Threes, Tactician's Kitchen, and Earth.
No trait tree?
The Shyvana, Skarner, and Tarek auras, if you didn't know, actually go away when the champion dies. I don't know. I've always thought that's pretty silly. So we've now changed it to where once they're in combat, they give
That's
you
a
the aura
massive buff. What the heck?
for the rest of combat.
That's crazy.
I love that a lot better.
The massive
and then
buff.
this list one's a little confusing, but we've talked about before how we have hidden rules with the way uncontested 4 and 5 costs work, where it's harder to hit them. This was to make sure they feel like trying to 3-star any other champion. We've adjusted those rules very slightly, and all you really need to know is that it is going to be a bit harder to hit a 3-star uncontested. So like, let's say you're the only player playing Rift Herald, it's going to be harder to 3-star a Rift Herald.
Okay.
But if you're contested, it will be slightly easier to 2-star them. So let's say 3 people are playing Kai'Sa. The odds of seeing a Kai'Sa for those first few copies are going to go up a little bit.
Wow.
So that's kind of the thing there. And then lastly,
so we can play
in the
contested
tutorial mode on the mobile devices, armories now last infinitely. So, all right, what do we got, Tim?
That's for you guys. Some of you guys don't know how to play TFT, so that's a buff for you guys directly.
Yeah, so for the first thing is going to be that XP thing. And you touched on it briefly, but we found out that too often people are going to just skip level 8 or try to roll as little as possible, which is not where we want one of those key levels to be. So not only is this going to say, hey, spend an extra turn in most games.
Do you guys think level 8 is too expensive still?
Open up some room for those reroll comps to have an extra round where maybe they have an advantage.
Notably,
Notably,
it's
we
like
didn't change
really
10,
expensive,
so 10 will
but
be cheaper
level
than
9 being more
and that's
fine
because,
too, I guess.
hey, if you want to like fast 10 and skip level 9 because you think you're strong enough, go ahead. We don't want to make that any harder. So it's not a huge hit to Void and Baron, but just like a small shift. So really, we want to push that difference and like, hey, those Prismatic Party and Scuttle Puddle games, you can probably go 9 really fast. But in a standard game, we want you to play on 8 a little more. And then the other thing, a keynote on the unlockable 4 and 5 costs. When we say easier to unlock, they will get no easier than it is for a standard 4 cost. Yep. So previously you got slightly penalized. Now you're almost not penalized. You're just playing on 4 cost for when you're slightly contested. So those Kaisas will be easier to hit.
So it's like it's not really impactful on Yunara and Wukong. So the 3-way Ionia, the 3-way Demacia, this doesn't affect anything. So if you want a 3-way 4-way Demacia next patch, it doesn't really change anything. It's still gonna be extremely hard to hit. But I guess it's like if the situation where you have 2 people playing Kai'Sa, one person hits Kai'Sa 2, the other person just stuck on one Kai'Sa, can't even hit pair. That should technically happen less.
Unlock changes. Now, basically, we've launched the unlock system. It's a pretty neat system. I hope you guys all like it. Does that mean all the unlock conditions are perfect? Nope. what we've generally learned is there's some pretty painful ones. So a couple of these we've decided to basically, all of these are making them easier to play if you really want to play.
You're going to unlock Yorick by accident?
It says Viego here. That should actually say Yorick. So that's my bad. But Yorick will require 2 items. It used to be 2 items on Viego. Now it's 1 item on Viego. So if you ever have one of those 2-item openers, you're not penalized. You can actually play Shadow Isles if you want. Tryndamere is actually the same. 2 items on Ashe becomes 1 item on Ashe. Same thing. If you want to play Tryndamere, go ahead. And yes, I know he's really weak on this patch, but don't worry, he's getting a small buff. Orianna, this has been one that you basically had to really high roll a Loris and a Vi pretty early. It kind of limited how much you could play Piltover and Orianna. We're making this a lot easier. This is just 2 items on any Piltover champion.
Okay,
so you can have a Caitlyn opener and a standard item opener.
I like that. I like that.
Run Orianna, no problem. That should make her more accessible. Also, I misspelled Orianna. Man, just not doing great here. Kai'Sa. Kai'Sa, we originally had her at level 8.
Level 7?
Really
wait, Wei-Jin told me this.
She's flexible between
Wei-Jin told me this
AP.
yesterday.
You would just always play Kai'Sa no matter what your items were.
Oh my!
I don't know.
I'm Kai'Sa next batch.
Paranoid. We were a little paranoid here, so maybe we're wrong. So we're gonna make it level 7. That way, if you want to play Kai'Sa, you can. And then lastly, Warwick. Warwick requiring a 2-star Vi and a 1-star Jinx was also pretty hard. If you didn't, get that 2-star Vi, it basically was completely out of your option. So now it's just 1 item on Vi and Jinx. And, as long as you have a 1-star of each, you can get Warwick, no problem. Should be fine. Now, the one thing I think will stand out here that we didn't touch was Twisted Fate.
I'm guessing it's level 7.
Twisted Fate kind of operating the exact same as Yorick and Tryndamere. It's like, why didn't you change Twisted Fate? Generally, we were kind of hesitant, I would guess, on putting Bilgewater even better than it is now. Bilgewater is getting some nerfs and things like that.
Bilgewater.
If we end up having to do that later, I think we will. But for now, it just seemed a little silly to be like, let's get you all play Bilgewater even more. So there you go.
Bilgewater.
Okay.
Yeah, you kind of nailed it. The context on was it Graves, unlocking Graves, is that sometimes in the unlock system, it's not a Bilgewater game on 2-1. We don't want you to be able to force everything on 2-1, and these other things have a little bit more of hoops. Like for Viego, you have to 2-star him still. Tryndamere and Ashe, I think we changed it because it was kind of special, in which case you're never playing Tryndamere without Ashe, so why are we putting this high hoop there? He might as well be connected to Ashe. Whereas like Tryndamere,
only he watched the most
Graves
recent
TF
tournament finals.
And I think the other thing that we learned in Dev, and why they started out a little bit hard, is that people often got their first time playing 16. They would often get confused or overwhelmed when you unlocked a lot of things in one turn, which happens a lot when you play Kai'Sa, or if Orianna was too easy to unlock. People would be like, why are these things popping up? But now we've had this set out for a while. We can kind of make the champions a little bit more common, so that if you want to play Piltover,
that makes
you want to
sense.
play Kai'Sa, you want to play Warwick, they're easier to get. You can play with new champions. We always joke that Orianna's now been introduced into the set, so hopefully that's true. But otherwise, they should make the set 16 early game feel a lot smoother.
Yep. Now, I do want to note that this doesn't mean we're done with unlock changes and no more unlock changes can ever happen again. Keep giving us feedback if you think some are too painful and things like this. We'll keep evaluating these, but these felt like the obvious ones. They're just like, let's make things a little better.
Yeah, I agree. I think this. I think Warwick. I like the Warwick and the Orianna changes. I mean, Viego and Tryndamere doesn't really matter too much because it's one of those things where you commit to it anyways. I guess it makes it less painful if you don't get if you have a good Viego opener with a 2-star and you don't get 2 items. Sometimes you get dropped only 2 components and you can't actually get that. So that's nice. This Kai'Sa change is very, very good. I mean, we'll see if they end up nerfing her or changing anything about it, but this will make it a Kai'Sa meta, like for sure. Especially because they're making level 9 more expensive, which means they're going to be playing around 4 cost more often. And they're making it so that you can play contested Kai'Sa. You have higher odds to hit contested Kai'Sa. Right now, my very first knee-jerk reaction is, well, I mean, it's going to be a Kai'Sa patch.
All right, on the trait side, Bilgewater. Yep, Bilgewater is getting nerfed. Shocker. This should not be surprising. The first thing is the free AD and AP they get just for playing 3 Bilgewater is going to go from 20 to 15. This should slow down their power in the early game. I think a lot of the Graves TF boards can just really wreck
changing
things,
our
even at 1-star, let alone 2-star,
okay.
Which you kind of get easily. So that helps them snowball pretty hard. The other part here, and this is probably the biggest nerf, is when we say they snowball, sometimes they really snowball. And the fact that you're getting 2 serpents per takedown could often be an extra 6, 7, 8 per turn, which would get pretty wild. We're going to lower that to 1. This should make it so that if you lose streak with Bilgewater, it's not going to be as painful. But this is going to be a pretty chunky nerf to all levels of Bilgewater. The 2-cost nerf that we meant to do last patch is in this time for reals, we promise. So that's in. And those are the 3 big nerfs. There'll be some champion adjustments later and things like that. But those all should actually like slow down Bilgewater quite a bit. And then 10 Bilgewater has ended up way too common. It's harder for us. Like there are some changes, things like the extra XP to 9. But overall, it's still going to be pretty common. And so we're just going to nerf it. It doesn't get to be as powerful because it's that common. So less damage, less gold, stuff like that. Darken 3, this is one that got over nerfed on PBE. Hasn't really been that exciting for how rare it is.
Okay.
And we talk about power being relative to how frequent they happen. 3 Darken's pretty rare, so if you do manage to hit it, you should be excited. I guess, with lots more damage. I think this is a 333% buff. So, a little out of our frameworks, but Piltover, especially with Orianna being more accessible now, Piltover should be more accessible. Did a small pass to make sure these are worth, especially for like 6 Piltover. So the AP 2-piece, that's going to get 3 more AP.
It's pretty good.
The Acceleration Gate, 5 more Mana Restore. That one, I'm kind of excited about that one.
That one's underrated.
We'll see.
It's underrated.
Magnetron Coil, little tiny nerf here. Armor Nullifier, 10% more damage amp. And Upgrade, 10% more attack speed. So Piltover should be a little more exciting. Void is the last one on this page here. Void, we got a lot of feedback from top challenger players that like the defensive ones are just less exciting than the offensive ones. And if you have a defensive one, it really limits what you can do, like especially around Kai'Sa. So we've decided to go ahead and always offer an offensive mutation first. So it'll be offensive, defensive, offensive. So that'll be good. Spitter Spines does go down in power a little bit. And then Royal Husk, which was the defensive one that was weakest, gets a small HP buff and armor MR. Now, I do want to know,
like a really, really good early
the Royal Husk, like, could this be better? Yes. We just don't really have the time to rework this, so it's going to just we're gonna have to balance it accordingly. We know it's a little worse than the other defensive one, so if it still ends up being worse, we'll buff it. But yeah,
yeah. So the Royal Husk, like this actually makes it really good early game. But then I remember he said that you always offer offensive, so you can only get it on 4 Void, so not that big of a deal. But Spitter Spines, if you haven't got the memo, I still see some people in chat talk about it from time to time. But Spitter Spines is far superior to a lot of the other offensive ones. Especially if you have like that Rage Blade, it's going to spit out so much damage. So that makes sense. I'm excited for the Piltover changes. I think that trait is generally unplayable. It's funny because we were talking about it right before this, but someone actually played Piltover in the tournament today for EU, and they made final lobby. It didn't go very well. They went 6th, better than 8th though. And they looked like they were going to go 8th for a bit, and then they managed to get a 6th, and they were 1 fight away from going top 4 as well. It was very, very close. But he had like the perfect Piltover spot, and I think Piltover is generally unplayable. This Bilgewater change is very, very heavy-handed. The Serpents per takedown is pretty severe. It's one of those things that just snowballs, because the more Serpents you get, the more likely you are to print Serpents, which will help snowball it. And the slowdown on this is massive. This one surprised me if Bilgewater is kind of unplayable outside of using it for a couple of things. Like you could use it for a couple of copies of whatever, but trying to play 5 and 7 Bilgewater, like, because the thing is, if you're not able to snowball for it, you can't even get to things like Tahm Kench. Like, how are you going to get to Tahm Kench now if you can't really snowball your lead? So we might actually be seeing the beginning of the end for Bilge finally, right? It's been about, believe it or not, the set's been out for a while, about a month and a half. We're coming up on 2 months of the set. And Bilgewater has been extremely good since launch. So, if not just straight up like the most broken thing, it's kind of like Heartsteel. I compared Bilgewater to Heartsteel. There's so many different ways to play it. There's so many free resources you get. There's so many ways you can cap out high, and it kind of stayed good for so long in the set. We'll see. Maybe we'll figure out another way to play Bilgewater, but I'm predicting that Bilgewater will finally be not that good. But we'll see.
Yep, I think the 2 biggest ones here are going to be Bilge and Void. Bilge, you kind of touched on. Bilge is a very, very tempo-based. Slam everything. Try to kill as many units as possible. How long does that
usually last? Like 4 months, 3 months, 3-4 months.
If you're ahead of tempo, you don't have to roll on 8. You can go to 9, put all the good units in. That's just kind of very, very consistent. So we're definitely targeting that. And that's where our changes are. It's also an econ trait. So you're going to hit 10 easier with that trait, which is why 10 Bilge is the most common prismatic. And then finally on Void, we also know that there is one comp that prefers the defensive one first. That is Seraphine Singe.
Doubloon?
But we think the benefits of putting the offensive
Maybe. I
first
don't think
opens
so,
up
but
more
maybe.
flexible options and more exciting options. Hey, starter kit Belveth feels really sad when you get Royal Husk and you get starter kit Belveth, right? And so I think this trade-off is something worth doing.
Okay, fair
Sweet.
enough.
All right, and then the second page of traits is just Ishtal.
Holy.
So it's Ishtal of 2 here.
Holy.
Basically, the TLDR here
wow.
is anything over 700 was kind of a little weak. It was kind of sad. Like hitting 700 plus is pretty hard. We see very commonly like 500, 550, maybe if you get lucky 625, but 700 or harder was hard. And so if you make it to there, we want you to feel really good. And so we're going to help you get that like 2-star Brock guaranteed, give you a little bit more power. And so all of these are meant to sort of say, if you can make it to that deep,
Okay,
Ishtal,
700 for Brock too.
more power. Great. Happy. And then beyond that, we looked through
wow.
some of the quests, found some of the ones that are pretty painful, which wasn't too many of them, but a couple of them here are just going to be easier to do. Stuff like spending money on rerolls, especially early, is going to come down quite a bit. Earning interest is also another one that was really hard to do for the rewards, so that's getting brought down. Trying to get takedowns with Kiana, especially late game. Like, have you tried to get takedowns with Kiana in stage 4? It's pretty rough. And so if you do it, more points. And then alternating win-loss in the late game. Oh my God, that's tough. But if you can, here's some more rewards. So again, some slight adjustments here. Ishtal is also the kind of thing we believe that with the top coming down in this patch, Ishtal will actually be one of the big winners here.
Yeah.
So we wanted to be too careful to not go super ham here. But overall, Ishtal should be pretty solid.
Ishtal's good. This is a massive buff to Ishtal because the thing about Ishtal is that if you mess up a quest chain, not only are you delayed by 1 turn, but that 1 turn can evolve into like multiple turns moving on, right? If you miss your reroll quest by 1 turn, you need another round to unlock it. You need that previous unlock to help do like 1 extra round of no items on bench or full bench, things like that. And it just like snowballs and compounds. So this is a really, really, really big deal, the fact that they did this. So I can anticipate Ishtal being very strong.
Yeah, as you mentioned, this looks like a huge page of Ishtal buffs, and which seems scary given the state of the meta.
Yeah.
But if you really like dig into what these quests are, they're slightly better in the early game. And if you played Ishtal early game is like a minefield of find the right quest, otherwise you can't really get a big cash out. So we're touching most of that. And then the stage 4, 5, 6, where people get a ton of their points, that's not really moving that much. And then the actual 2 quests we're increasing the clues on, or they're called sun shards now, are Kiana takedowns, which never happened. People didn't click that ever. And then alternate win-loss, which should be worth it. And I don't think anyone like consistently clicks this to get a huge... This is always going to be like the fun YouTuber moment of like, oh my God, let me just instantly get 400, 500, 700.
Yep.
Okay, a lot of people are like, why is this the only cash out? No, they're saying that they're changing elements of the cash out. So for 800, instead of just getting 50 gold and 2 radiant items and 2 fawns, now you get 2 radiants, 2 tactician's crowns, and 2 Brocks. That's what they're saying. Oh, sorry, 2 Brocks and 30 gold. At 800B, instead of getting just 145 gold, you're going to get that plus the dupe. Where's the 145 gold? I don't see that here. I guess this is what it is. All current items turn to radiant. Is this correct? I think so. And then 900, it says, 3 radiant items and 60 gold. And now you get 40 gold plus 2 dupes. Is that on top? So you have to understand that they're not putting the entire cash out on the table right here for you guys to see because it'd be too big. They're just showing that they're changing elements of it.
Champions. We actually do have 1-cost champion changes this time. Anivia, just a little bit below Sona, just not that exciting. Pretty much if you have a 2-star Anivia and a 2-star Sona, it's always correct to itemize the Sona. We don't want that to entirely be true, especially if you have like a Nico Anivia opener. That should be really exciting.
Okay, Anivia buffs.
Stun. So Anivia is going to get some more attack speed so that she can cast quicker than, say, a Sona, and that should help her. Blitzcrank, Zaun's actually pretty playable now. Blitzcrank is starting to find a home in things like Echo Reroll for a bit and stuff like that.
That's a pretty big
but
buff.
even then, like you get a 2-star Blitz, he just doesn't feel as exciting as even like Shen and Alawi. So another small buff here to help Blitzcrank. Briar and Kiana, both of these are just like these champions are solid at 2-star, especially stage 2. They're great openers. But if you ever 3-star them, you're sort of like, why did I do this? It's a waste of 6 gold. So 3-star is going to get a bit of a buff here. And, if you get like worth the wait Kiana, for example, we don't want your game to be completely screwed. So Kiana also getting a buff at 4-star. That's cool. The only big change here is Jhin. Jhin getting a bit of a rework here. This is going to change him quite a bit. Right now, Jin, if you have a Ginsu,
no Rage Blade,
very powerful. This guy's a beast, right? He will pump out the damage super quick and honestly can get you all the way to stage 4, no problem.
Yeah.
But the problem is that's not how he's designed, and B, it feels bad if you have like an IE opener. This guy's unplayable, right? He just does nothing. That feels really bad to be bound to one item. So we're moving him back to the attack caster he was always meant to be, where he could play like Shojin and IE, for example. And so when he starts casting his spell, his attack speed will be set to 1.0. So he'll go 1, 2, 3, you know, a nice consistent power, which means Ginsu's goes down in power. But if you get to, you know, again, like Shojin IE, and the fact that the spell is getting buffed, that will help him, and it raises his attack speed, actually. So that's really cool. Slight lower AD just to compensate here. We've kind of balanced around that. But overall, what this should mean is Jin doesn't need Ginsu's. He can play lots of items. He can still use Ginsu's, but like he doesn't have to have it.
Yeah,
that's a pretty big. Oh, let's listen.
Not here. I'm only going to talk about Jin because it's
the
biggest
math.
Change.
Okay, here we go.
Rage Blade builds early game are slightly weaker on Jin, which I think matches people's expectations. And then every other build on Jin is quite a bit buffed. So Shojin IE, Draw AD, they're not going to be heads and like shoulder above
did the math,
Rage
guys.
Blade, but they're going to be actually playable and actually win you some rounds. If you have 2 items land on a 2-star 1 cost, they should.
Yep.
Okay, so theoretically, this increases item versatility and openers, so that way it doesn't feel like you have to have Rage Blade and you can't play Jin otherwise. I mean, that theoretically sounds pretty good. It does make it feel like the Ione opener will be a lot harder to pull off because you kind of want that Rage Blade sometimes into Yunara. But it technically buffs other opener. You know what this buffs? This buffs the Kaisa opener because you can slam Shojin IE and it's better on Jin, and then you can get that into Kaisa. And they also buffed Kaisa as well by having her unlocked. And they actually made it so that Void modules are offensive as well. So this is yet another something that you can do to buff that type of opener if you have IE. And that's pretty good too because it's a good opener, just that doesn't have much of a home. Shojin IE is just like, who actually even holds Shojin IE like right now? I don't even know. Like early game, who are you putting that on? Not many units. I'm looking at it right now. Like Caitlyn is a unit, I guess. I'm thinking at 1 cost. Tristana. Yeah, I guess dude, we're like really not finding many units, so I guess that's why they want Jin to function in that role. So I mean, this is pretty big because the attack speed buff is pretty huge for DPS wise. So I'll be interested to see how much this changes things. But yeah, I guess this is I think this is a good thing overall. Jin, I don't know if Ionia gets that much weaker, but from this opener because Jin is they are pretty Jin reliant right now, but we'll see.
Sweet. On the 2-cost side, first off,
Shojin late game,
definitely
literally anybody
weaker than I think we wanted it.
Literally anybody.
We knew we needed to shift some power from Tryndamere into Ashe. We're going pretty light this patch. I'd say it's a really safe thing. I don't expect Ashe Tryndamere to all of a sudden be meta based on these changes. Hopefully it gets them back up into like B, if we're lucky, low A tier. But both of them are just getting spell damage buffs here, around 10% each. 10% isn't anything to sneeze at or anything like that. But, you know, this isn't a big swing or anything like that. Echo reroll has been a comp that has been rising. And I think even, you know, we're recording this on Thursday and it's like, it's been rising up in the tier list. People are really starting to optimize it. You know, it went from being played with Cho'Gath to now it's being played with like Nico and Nidalee, which is kind of cool to see. All of this is to say that we're kind of happy with that. We don't really want to nerf Echo. All this is if you go back to a previous patch, we gave Echo some more armor and MR when people weren't playing him, which put him outside of our standard framework for 2 costs. And so this is just going, okay, cool, people figured him out. That's great. We're happy with that. Let's put him back to the normal armor and MR that a 2 cost has.
Okay, so they overbuffed him on purpose.
It is a small nerf, but it should feel like a completely fine nerf without gutting his damage or anything like that. Echo reroll being playable has been awesome. We're happy with that. And then finally, Orianna. She's more accessible now, which is awesome. But if you've ever tried to play Orianna reroll, I think you can confirm it's like,
yeah, it's not great.
Still not even that good. Like, let's say you do have the high roll spot and you get all the items for
it's not that good.
Would you rather be playing Sona reroll or Orianna reroll? It's probably still Sona, right?
I bet most people don't even know what Orianna does. I think they just assume that she throws her ball somewhere and then she just does damage.
Getting Orianna to be...
Anyone here actually know what Orianna does?
Actually a unit here. She's getting a pretty big buff here. 10 mana is a chunky buff. And so this should help Orianna actually be a unit and open up a lot of the comps that used to revolve around Orianna.
Only thing to add is Echo's a good case study of,
Wait,
hey,
so
we
many people
buffed him
do. What the heck?
when we didn't fully realize his trait was as bad as it was. We brought his trait back up. He's too tanky for his cost. Hey, let's bring his thing down. So that's kind of the cycle that we went through.
Yep. Sweet. All right,
Oh,
3
sorry,
costs.
let me go back. Ash buffs are pretty sizable. I don't know how much relevance this is. I have not gotten enough reps on Ash to know if this is meaningful, but this is probably just overdue. And they're buffing Ash and Tryndamere, and it's needed. They are pretty terrible. We did literally just watch an EU player play it in Final Lobby and get a third, but that was sort of a miraculous set of events that I can't even begin to describe how high roll it was. He played no scout, no pivot, Ash, Tryndamere, and just crazy, crazy things happened, and he top 3'd in Final Lobby. You could also just laugh and just say EU Final Lobby. I can't, but I'm pretty sure that they need the buffs. So yeah, and then Orion. I mean, these all make sense. I mean, Echo is really strong. If you look at the stats, some people are like, "Why do they nerf Echo? He's fine." The stats kind of make it look like Echo is very, very, very strong at like the lower elo, like a better than a 4.0. If you like know how to play Echo, it's like absolutely destroying lower elo, and at higher elo it's definitely like not as oppressive, but it's quite good. And if you haven't caught on by now, Echo's like the best reroll comp in the game by far, and I'm pretty sure the stats are held down by the fact that people are playing the non-Nidalee version of it, right? There's actually multiple variations of Echo showing up in all stats, and that's because a lot of people are still playing the bad version of it, like playing like the old Zon, like Malzahar / like Prio Seraphine type of thing. If you like learned how to play the real version of it, it's like it's much, much better. So
Cool.
it's a good nerf, I think.
Sweet. All right, 3 costs.
Or an important nerf. I don't know if it's
Draven,
the right nerf.
Draven is in
it's
an
a
okay
justified
spot,
nerf.
but he still has that trouble where at the start of combat or a very fast-paced combat, he just doesn't output the damage. He really has to stack up those axes, kind of like Jinx, to be honest. And so giving him a little bit more base AD, not even a full 10% buff, though. And again, this is just his base AD, not his axes.
Whoa!
So just to help him be a little more effective early on in the fight.
Green sentence.
Very light buff here. Malzahar, same thing. Very light buff here. Don't need to go crazy. He's just a little under, so not even a full 10% buff here. Sejuani, she just doesn't quite stand up compared to like, you know, a Loris or a Nautilus. So getting her open to hopefully open up some defender lines also help Freljord. Just going to be able to shield a little bit longer. Again, very minor here. Don't expect this to change things. Zoe getting a full 10% buff here. Zoe, I think, is a champion. I'll say personally, every time I see a Zoe in my shop, I want to play her. But she just falls off way too hard a little bit here. So this will help her chunk. And you get a Zoe out of a box, you should be excited.
It's an ASOL meta,
She's
you guys.
a Targon unit. They're supposed to be stronger.
ASOL meta.
So this should help. You're going to want mana items to help her cast a bunch. She does overkill quite a bit. But hopefully this makes her a pretty scary threat. And then finally, I'm saving it for last here, is Leona. Leona and Diana are getting a bit of a rework. You'll see Diana in a future slide here. But one of the big misses, I think, when we shipped the set was that Leona and Diana were supposed to synergize with each other, but actually players figured out that it was incorrect to play Leona because it just made Diana waste time, which wasn't great. So it was incorrect to play both of them, and that's bad. So we are going with a pretty straightforward solution here, which is your strongest Leona grants your Diana AP per second. And so over time, if Leona can live, Diana is going to become a nightmare. And so that should be a really cool thing where Diana gets to scale up. It's also healthy because it won't happen in the first 5 seconds of the fight.
Healthy! It's going to be healthy!
That's just a cool change. So is this really a buff to Leona? Not really, but it is a cool new thing for Diana.
Yep, you know, pretty small changes across the 3-cost roster. Nothing super far off here compared to the other cost buckets that we wanted to change, and the biggest thing being the Leona addition, which I'm sure we're going to talk about on the next slide when we go to 4-cost.
I really do not like this Diana. I don't like Fizz either. It just feels like we're taking turns, man. Diana or back to Fizz or back to Diana. We'll see. I mean, maybe it ends up being that Diana's too fragile. Her losing her shield is a really big deal. Losing the shield is a really, really big deal from when she had the Titans BT build with the Rage Blade and they nerfed it a lot. That's part of the reason why she's not that good. That's a big reason why. But I mean, maybe she turns into just like a glass cannon, and now all Diana tries to do is dive in, kill one unit, and trade with your carry, and that's going to be really annoying. The other changes though, I mean, Zoe's not even that bad of a unit right now. She's just outclassed by a lot of other things, and she doesn't exactly build into other traits the way LeBlanc builds into their invokers, the way Ari builds into Ionia. So I mean, Zoe's actually fine. So this actually might make Zoe out of a box quite good on stage 2. So we'll see if Zoe openers are really good. They're buffing another element of Freljord. These are just other things that make sense. Draven's a little bit underplayed. It's crazy because in the China meta, they still play a lot of Draven, which I don't even know if I believe anymore, because on all their tier lists, even Title's tier lists, they put like Draven rerolls still pretty high, which was very surprising to me. But a lot of people just haven't played Draven in the West, so maybe we're bad and we're behind, but for the most part, I haven't seen people play around Draven.
All right, speaking of which, all right, forecasts. Braum, kind of the weakest forecast, especially if you compare him to like a Garen.
Yeah, agreed.
And that's kind of sad. He's supposed to be a really, really tanky dude. Now, he can succeed. I've definitely seen some scary Brahms, but just doesn't quite live up. So, small mana buff here to get him into that shield state more often here. He has, I think, 55% durability during that spell, so he's a tanky, but just letting him cast it a couple more times here. This is, buff to Freljord, buff to Shadow Isles, stuff like that, so that should help Braum. Garen, there was a bug fix last patch that made him a little better than intended. He's kind of been the, like, secret, little too strong in like the Demacia comps, the Sona comps. A lot of it just feels like when you fight those comps, you're like, can I kill this Garen that feels immortal? The fact he has that high durability and the heal. So not a big nerf or anything, but am going to nerf the heal durability of 1 and 2 star Garen. So that's going to come down. Any comments on those before we get to the 2 big reworks here?
Nope, those are pretty simple.
Yeah,
okay,
pretty straightforward.
All right, so the first big rework here is Fizz. A lot of people were questioning how his targeting worked.
Yeah.
And we dug into it and we looked at it. And what we found was actually a bug that we were not happy with. So Fizz's targeting after this patch should be a lot more consistent. You should.
I knew it. All you shameless Fizz players were bug abusing. All of you were bug abusing. Every single last one of you. I knew it. Send them all to jail.
Actually understand that he's going for the unit that the tooltip says he should. That should be a positive here. So apologies for that.
I mean,
that got through. But
I play a lot of Fizz
more consistent. Now, with that consistency, we also evaluated his framework. And what we will say is that a Fizz with a death cap and a jeweled gauntlet being able to one-shot a Lissandra 2 in 4 seconds in the combat, it's too much. He could sometimes do it with 1.5 damage items. This dude pumps out way too much damage.
Yep.
What we'd like him to do is like get on that Lissandra, get her to
the
half
damage
health,
is
maybe
crazy
30% health with a lot of damage items, and then move on and come back and be this like annoying target that jumps around. So his damage is getting gutted here. I won't even undersell it. Like the damage is going way, way down. But to compensate the empowered attack damage, he has to do that 1, 2, 3, 4 autos. That's going to come out a lot quicker, which will get him back to casting, back to jumping and dropping aggro. And that should be a much healthier version of Fizz, but it is a large nerf. Won't undersell that. Any Fizz comments?
Yeah, feel free to jump in at the end here, but this is kind of an expression of something we want to try with Assassins that is enhanced by unlocks.
Rageblade Fizz. Rageblade BT Fizz.
Mosquito who jumps around and is really annoying and debuffs and disrupts the backline. He's not meant to be a solo carry. And unlocks are meant to communicate that to players in the sense that, hey, how do you get Fizz? You almost always need another carry next to him. He's not meant to be put 3 items on your forecast. He carries you all the way to 9.
Yeah.
And I think he was too close to that now, especially in bilge lines where you can just kind of stabilize off Fizz 2 and 3 items. And so this is why there's such a big swing, because he's supposed to be your supportive carry that disrupts backline, right?
Yep. Cool.
Other than that, yeah, that's the change.
All right. And then Diana. Obviously, Diana was really, really strong as this like drain tank, which again, not really what we were going for when we designed Diana. She didn't work well with Leona. That was weird. So the first thing we're doing to make sure that drain tank isn't an issue anymore is the shield is going from, it used to just be a 2-second duration with no monolock, which made Ginsu's really good because you could get back to casting in the 2-second window that your shield was still up. And you would use Titans to make your AP really high and get big shields. And it was really gross paradigm that we don't like. So now the shield and monolock, which is meant to keep her alive during the dash, ends when the dash is over, right? So there will be these moments of vulnerability that every melee champion should have, and that will go down. Now to compensate, the shield is going up in power. Great. So she'll be tanky while she dashes a little bit.
So buffing her shield again.
Burst her down through the shield, and then she'll go back to doing her thing. Now, her damage is going down even more, which I know some of you are probably like, wait, you're nerfing Diana more? That doesn't make a lot of sense. But this is a relatively small nerf when you consider that with Leona on your board, after like 5 seconds, you're going to have 20% AP, which will scale these numbers up to higher than they are now, right? Like within 5 to 6 seconds of combat with a Leona on your board, Diana's stronger and she'll keep scaling. So this is mostly to compensate for essentially what is a new passive on this combination, and that Diana's peak will actually be a lot higher. So even though this is a lot of red, overall this is a pretty big buff to Diana's potential. Hopefully it plays out that way, but that's what's going on here.
Can you imagine if for some reason Diana's Biss is like Titan's Bramble Dragon's Claw and then she just becomes unkillable in scales? I don't know. I don't know if that's actually what's the case. Maybe it's going to be like just a lot of Omnivamp and defensiveness, but you just build like a tanky Diana and now she just gets infinite AP scaling and it'll just be really, really hard to deal with. I don't know. We'll see though. The mana lock is a really big deal. So it's hard to say. With such a big adjustment, you can't really predict it. But if for some reason Fizz sticks around and Diana is in, when you have to play around both Fizz and Diana, I'm gonna lose it. I'm gonna lose my mind. I might never play range carry again.
Yep, but we want to, again, with Assassin backline champions, we want to make sure we're promoting a healthy combat. So that Diana without Leona is probably not going to kill your carry that fast. Diana with Leona, it is going to kill your carry eventually. So
you just trap Leona?
Maybe one sustain item to keep her alive. I'm not going to think Titan's going to be bad on her now. But you also want to capitalize on that big AP she's going to get with the multiplication item, whether it's like GS, JG, stuff like that.
Yeah, but you don't even need that if you get so much AP scaling. Hard to say.
All right, moving on. We have
they are nerfing Kai'Sa.
I'll do Kai'Sa real quick. She's easy. Because she's available at level 7 and you get a guaranteed copy, she does have to be nerfed at 1 star a little bit. So both forms getting a slight nerf at 1 star just to compensate for the fact that she'll be more available easier.
That makes
sense.
We're
not nerfing 2 star. So again, this is mostly just to compensate for the unlock change. Taric. This isn't red because technically it's a rework, but if I'm being bluntly honest with you, I think this is a large nerf. Taric does something that's pretty unhealthy. There's 2 champions that do it, which is this whole essentially invulnerability for 2 seconds, right? For those of you who've been playing TFT a while,
Ox Force.
We'll call this the Ox Force effect.
Yes.
And it turns out when you're playing a champion that like only gets a couple casts, like say a Mel. Imagine you're playing Mel and your cast
just,
goes
stops
into
all
a Taric ult, and you just lose the entirety of your 1 spell per combat. It feels really, really
That's why
bad.
Lysandra struggles.
Very healthy. And so we tested this with both Taric and Kindred, and overall we're just not really liking what it does to AP lines and big boom casters and stuff like that. So Taric's getting a rework now where instead of 90% durability, he's going to heal over 2 seconds. This is a chunky, again, if you're up against like a Yunara, this will actually feel pretty similar. Maybe even technically a slight buff, which is why, again, it's here. But like you go up against a Mel, Taric's going to be a lot worse. And so Taric is not going to be as much of a plug-and-play tank who's better than, Braum anymore. He does provide that aura. That's kind of his purpose here. He's not supposed to be quite as good as them, but that's what's going on here.
Wow.
Yeah, going back to that, one of the first slides, Taric is supposed to be this threat with an aura. His aura is buffed. If he dies, it stays around. And so this is kind of shifting him more into that space of, hey, unitemized Taric is going to be actually a lot better.
Aura. I mean, it's true. The
aura
buff is a big change.
He's going to have a heal that buffs his probably 1-star HP. But as a 2-star tank, he was overperforming a lot. So this is kind of a small nerf to that and needed nerf in my mind.
Yep.
And healthier for the game.
Yep.
Yeah. So some people wonder why certain units perform there's like a lot of volatility to it. If you have like a Lysandra that ever targeted Taric, because Lysandra needs to single target burst, Taric can almost single-handedly invalidate it, but just by being on the same side. And that's not even just true of her, but also anybody that's a big caster. And Taric on the correct side of your unit just ends up being really problematic. And so it makes sense because he's too good. And they also buff the aura of like the units to stay around after they die. So there's no way they could actually not nerf Taric because he'd be too good. That being said, it's a pretty huge change. But we'll see. I mean, the thing is, AP lines are not even really struggling right now, so maybe it wasn't necessary relative to the meta. But I would say that they're probably right that it's healthier long term. It's a pretty big change, though. What's the effect on his Ziggs ults? I mean, I guess it's worse. He's more likely to die. WTH is Aura. I can't read.
All right, 5 costs. A lot of 5 cost changes here, so I'm going to try to plow through these here. Aatrox gets a damage buff. This guy's been underperforming for a while. He's supposed to be exciting. The one change.
Oh wait, did I talk about the other 4 cost changes? I think I did.
Game.
Oh yeah, no, I think I talked about the fizz and everything like that, right? Yeah. I mean, I think everything makes sense here. Everything makes sense.
Through these here. Aatrox gets a damage buff. This guy's been underperforming for a while. He's supposed to be exciting. The one change though, and I think this is mostly a nerf, but not that a lot of people were building him attack speed, but if you do, his spellcast animation no longer scales with attack speed.
That's a really big deal.
Becoming like a weird Ginsu's user. That's not the goal here.
Oh,
but he is getting buffed, cool, so damage going up a good amount here, actually, a little more than 10%. Annie, not necessarily far off. Annie usually more a victim of combat pacing. The fact that, you know, combats are getting really fast. People are starting to optimize best-in-slot builds, things like that. So Annie's been having trouble keeping up, lowering her mana just a little bit so that she can get that out there if you get those Annie builds. Galio, this is less of a nerf and more of an adjustment in the sense that right now he basically has 2 items that are really usable, which are Adaptive Helm and Dragon's Claw.
Armor and MR.
Maybe Ionic Spark and BT, but not really because he only scaled off MR. We're letting him also scale off armor a little bit also to open up some more items. So if you get like a Gargoyle Stoneplate or something, you can actually get him to scale a little bit better and not be quite as different if you don't have 2 Adaptive Helms. So overall, it should mostly just change his itemization.
Does this make Adaptive Estrubis? Because Adaptive gives both, right?
Really tiny buff here for now. 1 star is just going to be able to kill the target she casts on a little bit better. We don't think Mel's necessarily that far off, though I will say she feels more like Annie in the sense she's a victim of like fast combat pacing right now. Might still be more work to do on Mel, but for now, that's all she's getting. And then Kindred is the last one here. Kindred's also getting a Taric-like rework here, where the spell is going from Prevention from Dying, which was insanely powerful and could block entire Mel ults, to a shield of 350, 750. So she'll give everyone a shield, which is great. And in some cases, this is a buff, right? Because like if you were facing a Yunara and all of a sudden Yunara is hitting a shield, she's not bringing down your health. So in some cases, this is a buff, but it's not going to block those giant spells. And then to compensate for this, we're giving her back some of her damage that she lost last patch. She was 350 before, so it's not quite the full swing. So hopefully she can actually kind of be a carry again. And that zone duration is going back to what it was before.
This actually can, in some matchups, could actually be a buff. I mean, the prevention from dying obviously is really, really huge for any of the tank stuff, but sometimes that shield, remember, there's other things that like synergize with shields pretty well, so it actually, in some ways, could be a buff.
Couple notes here. Galio's kind of a lesson. Hey, by the time you get Galio, you don't really get to
assuming that your
so
unit's
really
not
hard
dying
for players to
they're
make
not
Galio
gonna die anyways.
and he kind of felt underwhelming. Again, not supposed to be a huge buff because we think Demacia is in like a great spot. We don't want to buff that high end even more. And I think Noxus itself has risen up and it's close. So we're trying to be a little bit careful here, knocking down the other top comps. But I think Mel and Bessa need a little bit more work in the future.
Mel and
when are they
Bessa
supposed to be good? When are you supposed to itemize them? And how do they actually fit in a Noxus comp? Because I honestly think their best comps are not vertical Noxus.
Yep.
But that's for the future.
There's more 5. Oh, there's more 5 costs. Okay, we'll go through all of them.
All right, next slide. Shyvana, because this aura is always on, and the fact that she was a melee champion, she would die pretty early frequently. That's a pretty big buff to her aura.
But she has an aura,
so to compensate, we are lowering that a little bit. Should still be very valuable here. The 8% passive reduction is still insanely good, and the fact it's always on is great. And then the other thing we're trying to do here is make her a little bit more of a consistent carry. Sometimes you get her from like aura farming or something like that. It feels pretty bad. So she's gonna be able to cast more often. And the cast is going to hit harder. Farming. Now, this looks like a big buff on the cast, but the duration's coming down, so it's more like a little buff that happens quicker. So overall, should help Shyvana be a bit more of a carry. Silas, we don't think is that far off, but he's still a little fragile, so 10 more armor and MR, so he can be
pretty chunky
here. Thresh, pretty similar here. Thresh isn't necessarily that far off. He doesn't shine as much as some of the other top stuff, but with all the top stuff coming down, we think he'll be a bit better. But that being said, he still felt a little below the line here, so a bit more passive damage and healing to make Thresh shine. If you hit that 2-star Thresh at the end of the Shadow Isles journey, he should be exciting. We want that to be true. Ziggs, obviously one of the big overperformers of this patch. I think he went from borderline unplayable to one of the best units to cap out any comp. And we're happy with him actually being pretty strong. Just went a little too far here. So the passive damage is going to come down here. So this should hopefully get him to right where he needs to be. Great. And then the last one, I skipped to save this one for last here, but T-Hex obviously was, Giga broken 16-1. And then basically you're not really seeing him in 16-2. We took a good look at him, and this is not us trying to get him back to 16-1, obviously.
It's a big buff.
But what we found is that, like, him being a little more durable, totally fine. The auto attacks, because this is only base AD, this doesn't affect his spell. But in between his spell, it didn't really feel like he was doing much of anything.
Oh, man.
And then I think the scary thing here is if you look at the spell damage buff here, this is technically bigger than what it was in 16-1. And you might go, what? That's wild. What are you doing? Well, the fall off change that we did in 16-2 actually did most of the work, which was great.
And also they nerfed the 3-star scaling.
T-Hex 2 can ult in direct into like an Echo's face and not be able to do any damage to it. And that's not what we want.
That's literally what we saw actually today.
To be able to like ult and kill the thing he's ulting, the one unit. What we don't want is him deleting backline units. And so the fall off damage did a lot of the work here. That's good. We can put some power back in the spell. And then we made sure, again, backline damage is not the goal here. So the missiles, which are based off the base damage, had to be nerfed so that missiles aren't just missiling your backline. Like, all of this is to say it is a buff to T-Hex, but we're really trying to avoid he deletes your backline in one cast. So
yeah, he's nowhere close to where he was over the holidays. The other thing is he doesn't get 10 mana regen.
Yeah, the 3-star caster scaling
30% less. So it's really nowhere close to killing your backline. But if he's not going to kill your backline, he has to win the fight somehow, which is he has to crack your front line eventually, and he only gets 1 or 2 casts off a fight. Thresh,
he's
I
gonna
think
keep
the
going.
other thing is he is a drain tank. That's his itemization. You put a ton
I don't
of
even know if
AP
Thresh
on him,
needed a
he's
buff.
close to drain tank. So expect him to have some like eye-popping healing moments, kind of like
I don't even think he needed a
the
buff.
2/5 costs where you'd be like, damn, I really should have built healing reduction against these two when they were upgraded.
Sorry, everyone say hi, Levi. Hi, Levi. Wave hi to chat. Wave hi. He's trying to wave hi. Look, everyone's waving hi. What do you think? Did they need to buff T-Hex and Thresh? Yeah? Do you think that they should have also... Let's see. Do you think they also needed to nerf Tarek? Yeah. He's saying yeah. You guys can't hear it. All right.
Enjoy your food.
Okay. It's so funny because whenever he says yeah, he actually says a pause now. He goes, yeah. What are we talking about? Oh yeah, did they need to buff Thresh? I don't even know. I think part of the reason, the hardest part about Thresh is that getting to Thresh and getting the Thresh 2 was really hard. But if you got the Thresh 2, it was really good. And now maybe the buffing to the path ability of it is probably not enough. So maybe the Thresh slight buff is not going to be that big of a deal. But I thought he was all right. He kind of felt like Ziggs to me. I remember I was thinking like before the Ziggs buff, I was like, Ziggs is not bad. His traits are unplayable. Like no one was playing Zaun and no one was really playing around long shots. And also just getting to Ziggs was kind of weird. But then they gave him like a really big buff and then he popped off. And I understood that it's like the same thing. I think like Thresh could arguably not use buffs, but it's whatever. Like the buff here, I don't think is gonna be like game warping, but we'll see. It's a pretty big heal buff. And then Silas buff, Mel buff. I mean, those are just like underplay units in any buff. That just all makes sense, right? We're at 35-40. Galio is gonna be crazy with this. Like, I think itemizing Galio might actually be insane. I don't know if you guys have ever seen Galio with adaptive, but I've seen him out damage both other carries in Demacia. Like we saw a game in tournament, was it yesterday? Someone had triple adaptive Garen, and that's a really rare scenario, but like it was with like salvage bin and things like that. He got the triple adaptive Galio, and it was out damaging both Sona 3 and Lux 2 combined. It's like the Galio came out and was just straight up one-shotting everything. Like the fight was just over. So Galio is like gonna be an absolute force to deal with if people start playing him correctly. It was Galio 2, but it's just one of those things that I wanted to highlight. It was not Galio 1, it was Galio 2. Aatrox needs a buff that's needed. And then I think we were talking about before, but I think this Kindred could actually be, in some scenarios, a buff. Because if your units are going to die anyways, let's say they're half health, the shield is actually very valuable, depending on what you're playing. So Kindred could be quite good. All right. And then the Shyvana adjustments make sense because the aura. And then, yeah, I mean, TX sucks. It definitely needs buffs. That's no doubt
have
about
some
that.
like eye-popping healing moments, kind of like Aatrox.
Without a
those
doubt.
are the 2/5 costs where you'd be like, damn, I really should have built healing reduction against these two when they were upgraded.
Yep. Cool.
Yeah, build your anti-heal.
Right, and then on the last slide here, we have three, well, actually, two reworks and one minor thing here. The Xerath one's pretty minor.
What's going on
some
here?
of the charms are getting adjusted here.
It's a
I think
massive
the most
patch.
exciting one is Desert Golem, which is now called Desert Golems. You actually get 2 golems. They're a little weaker, but should just be kind of interesting to get 2 golems.
Aesol.
Persistent Arcanery will actually grant Xerath 3 mana regen instead of just extra blast, so that's kind of cool.
Okay.
Rite of Negation gives damage amp instead of durability, just generally more useful for Shurima comps and what they want. And then Sacrificial Guard was basically just not very healthy, so we got rid of that one. Cool. All right, the 2 big reworks here.
Holy cow.
The first one here is Lucian and Senna. When we dug into Lucian and Senna, and we talked about this a little bit in the last rundown, what we found is that Black Mist was this mechanic that existed, and a lot of people probably couldn't even tell you what it does because it was just kind of convoluted, but it was actually secretly a lot of power.
Reducing the armor and magic resistance.
More armor and MR reduction than Fiddlesticks provides, on top of everything else Senna and Lucian already do, on top of their aura. It was nutty. So we've decided to just cut it. They already have their passive that's giving damage amp and damage reduction to the team.
Huge.
So the mechanic just didn't need to be there. So we took that out. To compensate, Senna gets more spell damage, which is cool. But so that Senna doesn't just blow up backlines, she also is getting the fall off that you would expect from a spell like this. So she can still apply like red buff to the whole board. She'll do more damage, but we don't need them invisibly deleting 20 to 30 armor and MR off your team. And then tooltip change here is that the DR and amp only persists while they are alive. They're backline units, so if you happen to snipe
so
them
that's
down,
an inverse.
losing that aura kind of makes sense. And it makes sense because that aura was switching anyway between the characters, so it kind of fits how they work.
Wow.
So that's Lucian Senna. Any comments on that before we dive into Aesol?
That's a really, really big nerf.
Okay. Aesol.
Really,
Aesol,
really big
I think, has
nerf.
been another one of our, misses of the set so far. The biggest miss, I've talked about this many times throughout many of my content,
The
is
itemization.
that he basically could only scale up by casting.
Yeah.
And so you had to build like Ginsu's Shojin +1.
Yeah.
If you ever put like AP items on this guy, you were kind of just griefing because you couldn't scale up, which felt bad. And even if you did have all of these items, it's like Gratz on lose streaking for 5 rounds while he scaled up. It was really painful. So we took a big stab at this, but the biggest change to note here is actually the 4th line, which is it goes from 1 Stardust per enemy damaged to 1 per 250 ability damage dealt per Stardust. Meaning, if you build like Shojin Ginsu, okay, fine, you'll cast 2 or 3 times. But if you build JG plus Death Cap, you're going to cast maybe less, but you'll do a lot more damage, which will scale your Stardust, which means building AP items on this guy is good so that you can actually kill things. Yay! That's a good thing. Then from there, we did balance accordingly, and from there, we actually found he still needed some buffs. So he's going to cast more often. His 1-star spell damage is going to go up. 2-star seemed fine.
And we need to buff after
the
that.
shockwave damage so that he can actually like do a little bit more to the threat that he doesn't hit is good. We did lower the Star Forger bonus, which makes sense because he doesn't need more Stardust at 2-star and also doing more damage, which like that's just a bad math. So that fixes the math. We did remove some of his spell knockup because he also doesn't need to CC entire teams. That's a little weird. And then I didn't list it all out here, but basically all the breakpoints have been adjusted. It should be a very similar flow where it's like after X turns, you're getting each upgrade, assuming you were playing it before. But yeah, overall, this should get Aesol to like an exciting 7-cost space, things like this. If we need to go from here, we will buff, spell damage or mana or whatever. But this now makes itemization actually not incredibly narrow on this guy.
Wow.
And so the whole
Wow, what a crazy explanation. I think that was like a 3-minute explanation on ASOL. And I don't really understand a lot of it because it's like there's too much conversion. 1 per X per X per Y. With like a bunch of mana changes, a bunch of breakpoint changes, with a bunch of scaling changes, with mana breakpoints being different. So I'm just going to go and do what I usually do, which is I'm just going to look at the stats. See what people do and figure it out. He should be buffed. The crazy thing is they restructured and reworked everything, then playtested and realized they need to buff him again. They actually got 1 patch ahead because imagine they reshipped that structure, realized it was bad one more time and buff him on 16.4. So I think that was pretty funny. But yeah, ASOL has, they said it's a miss. It's been a big miss for me this set. He's like, I think lore-wise, this guy is like one of the final bosses of the universe. It's like him and Zoe or something like that are like the two aspects that like rule over the entirety of it. So the fact that he like sucks kind of, it doesn't feel right. He should feel like one of the true final bosses. But obviously he needs to scale. You can't just have ASOL be played at 7 cost and then all of a sudden just win everything. So I appreciate what they're trying to do. But yeah, he's been a pretty big miss for me this set. I think Lucian Sun is a really huge nerf. But the black miss is like a big reason why it's good. It's just utility for your team, especially if you're like lacking some of that shred. It could be a way to temporarily keep things in check. Helps you also deal with backline, but this is a really big change. And I guess Xerath is already still really good. I feel like this doesn't really change how powerful he is. These are just the charms, right? So we'll see. I don't. What do you mean his design is bad? He's a scaling champion that if he reaches his peak power, destroys everything. It's a fine design. His numbers were wrong. His balance has been bad, but I mean, the design around the ability scaling thing was probably too much on the item stuff. But they're trying to work it. So
a Zoe buff, a Diana, Leona mini buff rework, and
what's
an
Tim
ASOL buff.
saying here?
So Targon's getting a lot of changes.
Dude, Targon buffs. It's an ASOL game
that we're going to discuss soon.
Yep.
That is also going to help Targon.
Oh, there's even more.
All right. Items and artifacts. Edge of Night hasn't really had a place in this meta. There hasn't been a really great reason to build it. I think the one exception is like Yasuo builds kind of like it. It's okay there. So we want to make sure this item has a place.
Just a
what we actually thought of was, hey, that Radiant version has a really cool effect where they like heal to full. Let's just borrow that. So now Edge of Night, when it procs, will also heal you for 30% of your missing health. Keep in mind it's missing health, not total health. So this is not a 30% heal. It's 30% of what you're missing.
That's still a big deal.
Like 50%. So it's a small heal. But overall, it should make Edge of Night a little bit better for people who want it. Things like Diana, who I think is going to be great with it because she needs the time to scale. So getting a drop aggro is good. Yasuo will still like it, stuff like that.
It's great on Fizz.
Should be cool here. Nashor's Tooth, also just a little underperforming. It's meant to be a pretty solid AP crit item. So it's going to get 5 more AP. And the Radiant version is going to get 10 to match. No big deal. Darkened Scythe. This item was weird in that it's clearly the AD melee item, but it had AD and AP, and I'm pretty sure there were no AP carries that were really using Darkened Scythe. So this really is supposed to be the AD melee item, and so it's going to get some HP to help when it ends up on, you know, some of those melee units like Yasuo, but it doesn't need the AP. That's gone. No big deal. And then lastly, some artifact buffs. I've talked about this on the meta report that some of the artifacts are underperforming a little bit. Dawncore, 5 more AD and AP. Okay. Gambler's Blade, 1% chance to make more gold. Indomitable, 3% more max health. Sniper's Focus, 5 more AD and AP.
Yeah.
If there's one I'm like a little nervous on, but we'll see what it does. I mean, it shouldn't be too big a deal. Is Flicker Blades getting more attack speed per attack.
It's a scaling thing.
I don't necessarily... I'm a little scared of like Flicker Blade Yunaras, but we'll see. We'll see. It should be fine. The item's not that crazy, and you're not really getting that much AD and AP anymore on this things, but either way, it's underperforming, and we know it's a popular item, so buffing it up makes sense here.
Yeah, for those of you afraid of Flicker Blades, you can look at where it was last set and the stats it had then versus set like now. We're still very, very far apart.
Yep.
We just want the fun items to be good. There's some more work here to be done, but it's a very deep topic with Ornn changing all the stats of every single artifact.
Yep.
So if you actually want a fun like data look, go look at which artifacts are good. They're actually the most unpopular ones because nobody picks them from Forge.
Yep.
Right. And the most popular ones are the worst because they're not deflated by Ornn as much. So inflated.
Yeah. This is great. This actually might be one of the biggest changes of the patch. When I say biggest change in the patch, on top of the units and other buffs, it's just that it might change itemization if Edge, because this is just like a straight new sentence on Edge of Night. That's really, really big. So the thing is, I don't know if Edge of Night, it's like Edge of Night has looked good in the data on a lot of champions already because of a lot of like survivorship bias or just the way people like you make Edge of Night if you know that it's playable on a champion and it ends up being like a good third item for you to make, so you just make it. But now it might actually just change things, right? Like if you have an Edge of Night Slayer's opener on a Kiana 2 and they buff Kiana 3, not Kiana 2. But like let's say you have that, all of a sudden it might give you way more options now than before, where it felt like you only slam like, you know, your Titans and your BTs. Edge of Knight's like a pretty unplayable item for a lot of the sets. So we'll see if this ends up changing a lot. Buffs, obviously, the relevant components as well, Sword and Invest. It also might make some of these other comps that like want Edge of Night really good. So you're talking about like Edge of Night on like Yasuo Yone, for example. That item is really good in that. And like if you go Edge of Night Quicksilver on those, like on Yone, for example, you know what I'm talking about. Might make him like kind of crazy. So we'll see. Nasher's buff was not something I expected. So I guess like AP gets a little buff there. I guess it's a little bit weak relative to the other mana generation items. But that's only because a lot of people build Nasher's Tooth out of necessity, unless they have, and it's probably because they don't have crit. So we'll see. But yeah, well, I mean, these buffs, I don't really have that strong of an opinion on it, except for Flicker Blades could be scary.
Cool. All right, augments. So I'll try to get through these quick here. First off, we have a new augment. This is what Tim was alluding to earlier, called Cosmic Calling. It's a gold augment on 3/2 only. You gain a Spear of Shojin and a Leona. And then on 3/7, you're guaranteed a Taric. This is an augment that says, hey, did you want to play Aurelion Sol? Here you go. Let us help you out here. Having some of these augments that let you play some of the harder to play lines is really cool. Kent put this together, and I'm pretty happy with this, so great. Growth Mindset is back. Before you dread, don't worry. It's a very simple augment now. It literally just says gain 50 XP. That's it. There's no, it doesn't lower the cost. You can't do anything else. We still want to test if an XP augment can be good. And this is quite a bit lower than like the XP you get from Call to Chaos. So it's not even Call to Chaos levels of XP.
It's not?
But
okay, never mind.
We want to see how this can play out. It still will, like, if you're in a position where you're playing, Void, and you see this augment, you should be like, oh, crack, that'll help me get to Baron. Great.
They also nerfed
its purpose.
8-9.
Let us know how it goes. It's possible the answer is we find out that, no, there just really shouldn't be an XP augment at 4/2. I'm skeptical of that, considering there's the gold one already, the one that gives you XP over 4 turns. But this is something we wanted to try out. So it's back. It's simpler. Should be less risky. Then from there, we have Aura Farming. This augment's been underperforming for a while. We're giving it back an item, so you get a full item with it.
What?
And some of those champions got buffed, as
Aura
you saw,
Farming
right?
with a recommended item.
Stuff like that. But it is going to come one stage later to make up for the fact you're getting a full item.
2/6 Aura Farming.
Bringer of Ruin. This has been, if Noxus is playable, with this augment, it's very playable. This actually elevates it a little too much now. Now that Noxus has been good, this augment has to come down, so 1 less AP per takedown, which obviously 50% nerf. That's chunky. Call to Chaos. The melee carry golem was a very bad reward. Sorry, it's gone. But a very good reward was getting 2 full item anvils and a golden egg. That one was a little too good. So now you get 1 full item.
That's also
we do
good.
expect this one to be sort of the like low roll, except when it's not, then it's a high roll. So if you ever take Call to Chaos when you have 20 health left and get this, I'm sorry, but that's why it's Call to Chaos, Chosen Wolves, this is the Ambessa Kindred one. This has been underperforming, gets a buff. Component Heist, this one's just been really a big miss. Like having to wait 5 turns for 2 extra components. So now it's 4 turns, which means you get them on the PvE
completely
round,
unreasonable
which should be a little bit
augment.
better. Crash Test Dummies, this one's also been underperforming, more stun duration. Demacia Forever and Dragon Guards both have been overperforming. Especially, Demacia is really good. That's part of it for sure. But regardless, the Jarvan one in particular, very good at 4/2. I will note, one of the weird things about Dragon Guards was like, you'd get 3-star Jarvan pretty quick, right? Like 4/3 to 4/5. And then if you tried to save up, you could hit 4-star Jarvan. It was really hard, but if you did, nothing happens. It doesn't scale because it was just armor and MR was base. That was kind of lame. So now if you do manage to hit the 4-star Jarvan, he gets to hit like a truck. It's a fun little fantasy to chase. Exiles, small nerf. Going Long and Hustler, you'll see this on the next slide.
This is Exiles 2, by
Both
the
of
way.
these, we tried buffing this set. I think they ended up just being a mistake. So we're just reverting them back to what they were. If we have to buff them from there, we will. But these were another ones that were kind of leading to the like people being level 7 on 3-1, 8 on 3-5 nonsense that didn't need to be in the game. So those are getting nerfed. Golden Egg, we fished a cash out that was missing Anima Visage. Now that it's gone, the Indomitable has replaced it. So no big deal. And then Hard Commit gets some extra starting gold.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I mean, this augment sounds like it's pretty fun. It's Secrets of the Sands, but for ASOL. You can actually get this off of earlier augments as well. Something funny that might happen is I think Cosmic Calling is programmed to be like stage 3. So if you get earlier augments, it's possible that you get it. You might get something like Cosmic Calling off of Indecision or like an earlier augment. So what if you get it on 3-6 and the very next turn you get it as well? We'll see. Growth Mindset, they did nerf the odds from 8 to 9. So, or not the odds, the EXP requirements. So maybe it's not that big of a deal. This does look like a lot of gold. If you need it, it's probably going to be pretty solid to pick. If not, just straight up good. This is scary. Aura farming now. I mean, you know the power of this 5 cost is if you don't have items for them, it's not going to be that good. But this they did nerf some of the 5 costs, right? So Senna and Lucian is not as powerful, but if you're able to get 5 costs that are really good, I mean, this could be another patch defining augment in a way. Like, but there was a patch where Aura farming just like destroyed everything. It has potential to do that. They do delay by 1 turn though, which I think is good. And everything else kind of makes sense. Like Crash Test Tummies, I actually don't think doesn't need that big of a buff, but that's a really sizable buff. Because remember, it's stunning 2 sides of the board, so half an extra second is a really big deal for comps that really want to rush things down. I'm thinking like Slayers, for example. But yeah.
Couple of notes here. Dragon Guards, again, it's also going to get buffed by Shyvana because Jarvan jumps when Shyvana casts. Shyvana will cast more with her mana reduction.
Oh, this augment's actually
Keep
broken
an eye
in the
for that
stats
one.
as well.
Hard Commit, we're probably going to talk about this a little bit more in the next slide. We'll lead into our discussion about emblems. Turns out, hey, some emblem augments still suck. So they're going to get adjusted. Some of them are too good, also going to get adjusted. And emblems themselves, none in this patch, but clearly some are overperforming, some are okay, and some are great. So that's the next patch thing.
Okay. All right. Hustler, as I just said, gets reverted. Now it's just 3 gold per round instead of 2 XP, 2
They're
gold.
killing Going Long and Hustler.
Know Your Enemy. This has been another one that's been really strong. So lowering the damage just a bit. Pair of Fours. This augment used to be pretty fun, but in this set, there just really aren't any good comps that only have exactly 2 4 costs, especially with so much variety. So we're just getting rid of it. It's just a weird bait augment, dead slot. That's gone.
Agreed.
Precision and Grace no longer gives the dashes at the start of combat. This is mostly to bug fix.
Yeah.
Those start of combat dashes were leading to some really problematic targeting behaviors. It still gives the attack speed, so you'll still have that initial burst of attack speed. And then when it chains after that, you'll still get the dashes. But overall, this should just help it be less buggy. Preparation 1 and 2, both of these augments have fallen out of favor. They're getting a buff.
Temporarily removed.
Slice of Life, if you've watched the meta report, this has been overperforming at both elos for quite some time. So again, lowering the power of what it gets. You can see here, you're basically losing 3 gold of value, but important gold of value at certain breakpoints. And that 4 cost coming later can really matter. Spreading Roots Plus, this one, of the gold ones, this one was overperforming slightly with emblems, only a little, so 4 gold to 2 gold, not a big swing. Sweet Treats, this is the one artifact augment that's actually performing insanely well. Now, don't worry, we're not silly here. We know part of it is because it works really well in Bilgewater, which has a ton of items, and turns out it's really good in Bilgewater. But that being said, as we buff artifacts up, that will make this even better. So we are getting a preemptive nerf here to hopefully get it back to a balanced state at 20 health per item.
Wow, these are big gold
Trait
nerfs.
Tree and Trait Tree Plus. Turns out when emblems are good, getting 3 emblems is good. Isn't that crazy? Which, again, we're happy with. But do you also need 12 gold on top of 3 emblems? Probably not. So the gold here getting chunked pretty hard here.
It's a massive
7 to 2, 12 to 4. That's great. Wild Growth gets a small buff here. So actually, pretty big buff, actually. So if you ever want to play Reroll Yordle, that should make this better. Worth the wait. The 2-turn delay was unnecessary. So if you ever want to do 1 cost, this augment should hopefully be fun again.
Ooh,
pretty happy with that.
That's a good buff.
And then finally, World Runes. This augment is a lot more controversial. I think like I said, I keep calling it the trait tracker of the set. I think that's true. And to that end, we kind of want to rework it. So for now, we're going to remove it because it's just so hard. Like most people who take it have a really bad experience. And then at high elo, it's like doing terrible things. So we're going to rework it. But for now, until we rework it, we're just going to take it out.
Mort said skill issue. He said, you bad.
Yep. Only thing here I want to note on is wild growth. Right now, this is a really Yordle heavy patch. Fizz, Vagar, and Ziggs are all really, really good. And this augment is still one of the worst augments at the top like level of play, which means reroll Yordle is not that good. But that line is also like fine in other MMRs. So this is kind of like our middle ground of, hey, if you get this, you can try it and it should perform better.
Yep.
Yeah, all these changes make sense. No real thing. I actually think there's more things like Pairs of Fours that are just like, why is this still in the game? Doesn't feel like it does very much. I can't think of one on the top of my head, but if I ever encounter it, I'll message Mort.
All right. And last is bug fixes. And sorry if...
Like, World Runes is such a problematic augment. People were getting it at 2-2, 2-3. Like, when I say getting it, getting the traits activated at level 5 at 2-2. And they would cash out by Krugs. They would cash out by the beginning of stage 3. And so they're just up in stage 3 with like 7 to 8 units with a ton of gold. They're playing one full stage ahead of you. It was just absolutely obscene. So that's what they're talking about. Like it was doing terrible things.
There's a weird cut here. Tim had to run to a meeting. We went a little long, so I'm just going to finish this up. We were almost done anyway. So bug fixes. Darius should no longer be monolocked for longer than intended in some rare circumstances. So hopefully this helps Darius be a little stronger, helps Noxus. If we need to buff Darius after this, we will. Band of Thieves 1 and 2 are now mutually exclusive. This prevents some issues that we were having with some bugs. Galio no longer interacts unintentionally with other systems. Bilgewater items no longer interact unintentionally with other systems.
Wait, what does that
TLDR
mean?
here is we're solving some exploit issues here. 1s, 2s, 3s no longer grant an additional
exploits.
1-cost champion. Tom Kench can no longer spit out spatulas and frying pans. This was helping to the 10 bilge inflation that was getting problematic. And
Good.
units
I
no
like
longer
that.
lose the durability from Big Friend 1 if they separate from their ally with 1750 health during combat. And finally, Void mutations no longer...
Is that why Big Friend is so bad? Because if they move away from the ally, they separate, they lose the durability. Is that why this augment is so terrible?
longer persist from higher tiers when dropping to lower tiers. So not a lot on the bug
It's like
fixes
the
side,
socialite.
mostly
It's like the
focused on
socialite
balance
buff
and things like that, but hopefully some solid fixes that help. Keep reports coming in if you see any other issues that we should be aware of. And as always, I'll talk about the known bugs in the Monday morning meta report as well.
I had no idea.
All right, that's it. That's a big patch. I know that's a lot. Hopefully it puts things in a better spot and more interesting things to play. Opens up more things. I'm personally excited for the Targon changes. I like
it's going to be a
Targon
big
lot.
patch.
That'll be fun. This patch comes out on Thursday, so
Thursday?
be aware of that. There's a holiday in the U.S., so it'll be a little later. I'm hoping to air this either Sunday or Monday, give you time to digest these changes. And yeah, that'll do it. As always, I appreciate Tim for joining me on these. He took up a lot of his time, but it's always helpful. Tim's been driving these patches, doing a great job. So awesome things to see there. And yeah, that's going to do it. So, all right. Hopefully you guys enjoy 16-3. Lauren Legends been kicking butt. Thanks for playing. Good times. All right. That's going to do it for me. Until next time, take it easy.
Title says KO Coliseum LMAO. Thanks, Mort, for the KO Coliseum patch rundown. Yeah, this Mort Dog guy's really phoning it in. Am I right? Not really. That's a lot of work. I can't believe he actually sat down and recorded that for hours. Video starts. Mort Dog says 6-7 and video ends.
Didn't be, an extra 6, 7, 8 per turn.
Some of y'all are just cooked. Slash marker, end patch notes, rundown. I think the summary of it is as a huge patch. No clue. I'm just going to say big winners. Big winners, level 8 comps. Big winners, Kaisa. Kaisa's a massive winner in this patch. Massive winner in this patch. I think Warwick is, Warwick and Zon are still probably going to be pretty good. Because it's level 4 cost. Targon seems like it got a lot as well. Demacia, I still think is going to be really good. They nerfed Garen a little bit, but maybe that's going to be a change. But Demacia hasn't really functionally changed that much. Like Sona's still probably going to be insane. If anything, they buffed other elements of it. Like if you play Sona and Nivea, you can be a little bit more stable now. And then what else? Oh, I mean, Shadow Isles also probably is probably a big beneficiary as well. I'm not sure what to think about the T-Hex. And anybody that plays Edge of Night, so Slayer's comp might be good, like the Belveth Slayers GP stuff. Oh yeah, Ishtal. Ishtal's also a massive winner too. Yep, you're right. Those are the big winners of the batch, I think. So a lot to change. The tier list is going to look really different. Tier list is going to look really different. We'll update as fast as we can on Thursday.